This was presented at last week's workshop by Josh, giving an update on the West Webster Hamlet 600 Ridge Road, furniture strippers. But when Josh presented last week, we didn't know some of the bid costs that were going to come in, like the various things. So can I have you, Mr. Paul, kind of explain some things before we move on? I'll hand the time to Paul and Josh just to give a little update from last week's presentation on the West Webster Hamlet 600 Ridge.
Sure. So, yeah, at last week's workshop, gave a presentation to bring you all up to speed on the efforts that have been going on for quite some time, where we're at with 3 different aspects of our revitalization effort. But at that time, we did not have definitive pricing for a couple of the optional elements that were referenced in that presentation. One of which was a structural assessment of 600 Ridge Road, the former Webster furniture stripper building. So since last week, we've received 2 quotes, one being $1,800 and the other being $2,500. I believe there should be a copy of those proposals in your packet. And the other information relating to the income survey that would essentially strengthen our application for the Restore New York grant. We did get 1 quote for that, and that came in just under $4,500. So with the handout I prepared for tonight's meeting, I just wanted to kind of quantify and summarize our investment to date in this initiative. We have the $100,000 planning study that is ongoing. That's a $90,000 grant, and the town is contributing a $10,000 local match. The environmental testing that Monroe County's consultants are conducting at 600 Ridge Road is costing approximately $22,000. And I believe we're utilizing ARPA funds for that expenditure. So those have already been allocated, hence the green check marks. What we're really here to briefly discuss tonight is the elements associated with the Restore New York grant. So I neglected to mention at the last meeting that there is an application fee of $1,000 if we were to pursue this grant. And then, as I mentioned previously, there's these 2 additional optional elements that would cost approximately $6,300. So if the board decided to move forward with those, essentially the total investment to date would be about $39,300. And then just in speaking with Matt Chatfield from WEDA, we thought it'd be interesting to kind of quantify the tax revenue that's generated from the properties within the study area. So using some calculations, we were able to determine that the town receives approximately $280,000 in annual tax revenue from the study area. And we believe that essentially the small investment that we are making has the potential to really pay a lot of dividends moving forward. So I wanted to bring this information to the board before you decide whether or not to pursue applying for the Restore New York grants.
And Josh, I know, and Paul, you talked to Josh and me about where that money, $7,300.
Right, we spoke a day or 2 ago, and certainly the money would be expended on the general part-on fund. It could be covered with a budget transfer. There are some monies available, but we could also use ARPA money. This would fall under the category of general government services, but ARPA actually called out the use of funds to clean up hazardous waste sites, which this may prove to qualify. So that just confirms even further that it's appropriate use for ARPA monies. Which I think is probably the way to go.
It may not be hazardous.
Yeah.
Double-edged sword. Is it typical for there to be $1,000 application for grants like this?
Restore New York is a relatively new program. This is only the second year that they've done it. I know that certain grant programs sometimes do associate with they have an application fee, while others don't.
What determines what the grant award is?
In terms of what the scoring matrix of the application was based upon, I think there's a variety of factors. Obviously, demonstration of need. The main intent of this Restore New York grant is to rehabilitate vacant and underutilized properties. So I think that the intent of an application fee is to really kind of weed out, and identify the applications
Sure.
that really suit this program.
Yes. Well, I think certainly the area sounds perfectly suited for this type of grant.
Yeah, and again, this is monies that will be used for aesthetic improvements of privately owned properties. There's specific criteria that properties may meet, so if the board authorizes us to move forward, we will immediately begin the effort of identifying the properties that qualify. And we'd obviously need to work with the property owners and have their permission as well.
I'll just say, the presentation last week, and I think it touched on it. This is a relatively new grant. It was a short timetable, milestone events. You have to have a letter of intent that's dated before November 30th. Well, this is our last board meeting in November, so that's why we're doing the resolution tonight, if we intend to go forward. Then we have to identify the properties. Matt Chatfield has already been in contact with some of the owners of these vacant properties. We are trying to make contact with the private owner of 600 Bridge, which is proved elusive. We will be coming back to the board, I think, in December with what the identified properties are. And then it all culminates where you have to have the application in by January 27th. And that's why there's some time sensitivity to it. If we're gonna do the income survey, which it does seem to put us into a better position to get the grant. And from what Josh and Matt have said, it also is something that will have like a 5-year tail for other grants that we can get. And then the structural report is a given because, there's so much banter out there. Well, it's a historical building. It should be rebuilt. I'm going to just reserve judgment on that. What's that?
I was going to piggyback about that because I think it was about a year ago. Which leads me to Matt's question is the structural inspection. So the owner's representative will be responsible for removal of interior finishes prior to the field visit to allow for complete and thorough investigation. Do we have access to the interior of that building?
Yes.
For them?
We do.
That's great because I know we walked through that building, I think it was a year ago, code enforcement.
You went, I did.
Yeah, there's some,
They were
I'm not
out.
a structural engineer, but there, you can see some pretty significant water damage throughout that building.
The phase 2 boring holes were done yesterday, right?
Yes, and they were actually out there again today.
So, hopefully, as we move forward on this in December, either the 1st or 15th meetings, that'd be great if we could report back before Christmas, this is what they found. Or maybe I should be careful what I ask for. Anyway,
Well, I'll give Josh and Matt and everybody that's been, Charlie, yourself, everybody that's been involved to move this forward. Because this property has sat there vacant for years. And with the inability to get to where we are now, so it's taken quite a bit of work from everyone involved. So I'm glad we're at least at the point we are right now.
So I would make a motion to authorize the town supervisor to sign a letter of intent on the Restore New York grant for the West Webster Hamlet.
Second.
Councilman Cody?
Aye.
Councilman Cahill?
Aye.
Councilwoman Wynn?
Aye.
Councilman Abbott?
Aye.
Supervisor Cleary?
Aye.